The steel food flask hit the marble floor, scattering jollof rice beneath Ronke Koka-Alo's ruby-red heels. "Hold her hands!" Ronke shouted as two security men dragged Bisi into the center of the glittering hall. This roadside food seller entered my charity event to steal. Poor people are becoming too bold. Hundreds of guests lifted their phones. Cameras flashed. Bisi Ilo's breathing shook, but she refused to bow. "I found that envelope inside a food carton, Ma. I was trying to return it." Ronke laughed, raising the money above her head. "Then kneel. Confess before everybody, and perhaps I will ask the police to pity you." The hall fell silent. Bisi looked at the rice crushed beneath expensive shoes, the same meal she had denied herself 5 days earlier to feed a starving stranger. Now, that single act of kindness had brought her here to be branded a thief. But before her knees touched the floor, a man in a bright cobalt suit rose from the front row. "Release her." His voice stopped the room cold. Before we reveal why this powerful man had searched 20 years for Bisi, comment your location and local time below. Subscribe now, because what happened next did not merely expose a thief. One covered a crime buried for 2 decades. 5 days earlier, at 4:17 on a wet Monday afternoon, Bisi Balogun stood beneath a sheet of blue tarpaulin in Ketu and watched rainwater crawl towards the last pot of food she had not sold. Lagos rain did not ask permission. It entered shoes, it swallowed gutters, it turned narrow roads into brown rivers and made every Danfo driver shout as if noise could move traffic. Bisi had seen worse. What worried her was the red chalk mark on the front wall of her stall. The mark had appeared that morning after 6 uniformed men arrived with a flatbed truck. They seized her 2 plastic tables, 1 bench, a cooking stand, and the faded umbrella she had used for 9 years. They said the walkway had to be cleared for redevelopment. Bisi asked for the court order. The officer in charge tapped the badge on his chest. "This is your court order." "No, Oga," Bisi replied. "That is your identification. It is not a court document." The man Alo's face tightened. "You people who sell beside gutter are now learning grammar. Carry your pot before I carry it for you." She did not argue further, not because he was right, but because 6 men stood behind him and she had only 2 hands. Now the rain had chased away the evening customers. 1 portion of jollof rice remained, 3 spoonfuls of beans, 1 piece of fried croquet, enough for her own supper. She lifted the lid and let the steam touch her face. Her stomach answered with a painful twist. On the wooden crate beside her sat a small exercise book wrapped in transparent nylon. Every page carried numbers: rice, tomatoes, pepper, kerosene, transport, rent, debt. Bisi counted the day Alo's money again. 1,850 naira. She needed 7,300 before 6. The next morning, if she wanted, the rice seller to give her another half bag on credit. Her landlord had also pushed a 14-day notice under her door. The room she rented behind the market would soon become part of a parking extension for a new commercial estate. The company buying the row of buildings was called Koka Urban Holdings. That name sat in her chest like old smoke. Bisi closed the notebook. Across the road, a middle-aged man in a cream shirt stepped down from a cake and nearly walked into a puddle deep enough to cover his ankle. He looked clean, but exhausted. His trousers were stained at the hem. Rain had flattened the collar of his shirt. He carried no briefcase, no umbrella, and no visible phone. At first, Bisi did not pay attention. Men came and went in Ketu every minute. Some were chasing buses. Some were chasing debtors. Some were simply moving because standing still in Lagos made people ask questions. But this man stopped beside a closed pharmacy and pressed 1 hand against the wall. His fingers trembled. Bisi watched him lower himself onto a concrete block. He took a slow breath, then another. Sweat stood on his forehead, although the rain had cooled the air. She knew that look. Years of serving food to drivers and mechanics had taught her to recognize hunger before a person admitted it. Hunger made proud people angry. It made quiet people talk too much. It made the hand shake first. The man raised his face. "My sister," he said, forcing a smile. "How much is one bottle of water?" 300 naira. He reached into his pocket. Nothing. He checked the other pocket. Then the back of his trousers. His expression changed from confusion to alarm. "My wallet." Bisi said nothing. He searched again, more quickly this time. He patted his shirt, looked towards the road, and then at the cake already disappearing into traffic. "Ah." He squeezed his face. "They have carried it." "Your phone?" Bisi asked. He removed a black phone from his pocket and pressed the side button. The screen remained dark. "Now battery is finished." "Do you know anybody Alo's number by heart?" The man gave a weak laugh. "That is how modern life has disgraced us. I know account numbers. I know contract figures. But ask me my own driver Alo's number, and my brain will start looking for cloud backup." Bisi almost smiled. Then the man Alo's knees shifted. He placed both palms on the concrete block and leaned forward. "When last did you eat?" she asked. "This morning. What time? Before 6. What did you eat?" He hesitated. "Coffee." "Coffee is not food, Oga." "I know. Do you have sugar problem?" "My doctor says I must not skip meal." Bisi looked at the food flask, then at the exercise book, then at the rain. The decision irritated her because it was already made before she finished thinking. She pulled a plastic chair from behind the crate. "Come and sit properly." "My sister, I cannot pay you now." "I did not ask whether your money is sleeping or traveling. Sit." He obeyed. Bisi wiped the chair with the end of her wrapper. She opened the flask and served the rice, beans, and fish into a clean bowl. It was everything left. The man stared at the plate. "This is your own food." "It is food." "You have not eaten." "How do you know?" "Because you looked at it the way a person looks at something she has already promised herself." Bisi pushed the plate towards him. "Eat first. Pride can speak later." He shook his head. "No, give me half. Hunger does not check bank balance before it disgraces a person. Finish it." For a few seconds, the man did not move. The rain drummed against the tarpaulin. A bus conductor shouted, "Mile 12! Mile 12!" A woman ran past with a carton over her head. Still, the man looked at Bisi. "What is your name?" he asked. "Bisi." "Bisi what? You want to eat my surname too?" He laughed softly. The laugh became a cough. Bisi pointed at the spoon. "Eat." He took the first mouthful slowly. Then the second came faster. By the fourth, color had begun to return to his face. Bisi poured water from a covered cooler into a cup and placed it beside him. "You cook well," he said. "I have been hearing that since before your hair started negotiating with Gray." The man touched his temple and smiled. "My name is Sei." "Good for you, Mr. Sei." Sei Adeyemi. The surname meant nothing to her in that moment. She had heard rich names, poor names, famous names and names that became useless once creditors arrived. She turned away to tighten the rope holding the tarpaulin. That was when the key ring slipped from her palm. It landed on the crate with a small metallic sound. Sei Alo's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. Among the keys hung a round piece of tarnished brass. Its edge was blackened. Across the center, faint but visible, were the characters A17. Sei did not blink. The rain seemed to move farther away. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Bisi picked up the keys. "Get what?" "That token. It is old. I can see that." "Then why are you asking?" Sei placed the spoon down. His voice changed. Not louder. Deeper. "Where did you get it?" Bisi closed her fingers around the brass disc. Some memories lived in the mind, others lived in the body. At the sight of Sei Alo's face, the skin beneath the scar on her left arm began to burn. She slid the key ring into her pocket. Some places are better left buried. Sei stood too quickly. The chair scraped the ground. You worked at Meridian. Bisi Alo's shoulders stiffened. No. The workers' Alo canteen in Ilupeju. The meal tokens were numbered by section. A was administration. 17 was assigned to the external audit team. Bisi lifted the flask and began to pack. You have finished eating. The rain is reducing. Please. You said your phone is dead. There is a charging kiosk beside the junction. Busy. She pulled the tarpaulin rope free. Sei stepped closer. Not enough to block her. Enough to see the pale burn line that ran from her wrist beneath the sleeve of her turquoise blouse. He stopped breathing for one beat. 20 years disappeared. Smoke returned. A steel door. A hand around his wrist. A woman shouting through fire. A brass token pushed between his teeth, while a nurse stitched his shoulder in a corridor, crowded with injured workers. Sei Alo's lips parted. BC George? The flask slipped from her hand. It did not hit the ground. She caught it against her knee, but the sound inside was hollow. Nobody had called her by that name in almost 20 years. Bisi looked at him properly for the first time. The face was older, broader. There was grey near the temples and a thin scar running behind his right ear. But the eyes were the same eyes she had seen through smoke. Wild, half-conscious, fighting to remain open. Her chest tightened. She whispered. Sei took one step forward. I have been looking for you. Bisi Alo's face hardened. Then you did not look well. She picked up the crate, turned into the rain, and walked away. Sei remained beneath the tarpaulin with the empty plate in his hand. He had imagined this meeting for years. In some versions, Bisi cried. In others, she smiled. Once, during a sleepless flight over the Atlantic, he had imagined kneeling before her and placing a check in her hand. He had never imagined her looking at him as if his search was another injury. His phone remained dead. His wallet was gone. Rainwater entered his shoes. For the first time in many years, Sei Adeyemi had no assistant, no driver, no boardroom, and no prepared answer. He stood there and understood one thing. Finding Bisi was not the same as making things right. By 7:12 that evening, Bisi had locked herself inside the single room she rented behind the market. The room was 9 steps long and 6 steps wide. A foam mattress rested against one wall during the day and lay flat at night. 3 aluminium pots stood beneath a narrow shelf. On the shelf were 2 plates, 1 cup, a Bible with a broken spine, and a framed photograph turned face down. Bisi sat on the mattress without removing her wet blouse. Her left arm throbbed. She opened her hand. The A17 token lay in her palm. She had nearly thrown it away many times. Once in Mushin, after a woman recognized her from an old newspaper cutting and refused to let her cook at a burial. Once in Aji, when a landlord told her thieves were not welcome. Once after her mother died and the hospital clerk asked why the dead woman Elo's surname did not match hers. But every time she tried, she remembered the fire. Not the accusation. The hand. A man trapped behind a steel cabinet, his shirt burning at the shoulder, his voice gone from shouting. Bisi had taken that token from the canteen counter because it was the nearest hard thing. She pressed it into his hand so he would not bite his tongue, while she dragged him across broken glass. Later at the clinic, he had clenched it between his teeth. She had thought the token was lost. The one on her key ring was another from the same set. A duplicate she found after the building was cleared. Why had Sei remembered A17? Why now? Bisi reached for the face-down photograph. It showed a younger woman in a white blouse standing outside Meridian Workers Alo Transport Cooperative. Beside her stood Bisi, 25 years old, smiling with both hands on her mother Alo's shoulders. At the edge of the frame, partly cut off, was Ronka Coca. Bisi turned the photograph down again. A knock came at the door. 3 short taps. She froze. "Who is there?" "It is your landlord." Bisi exhaled. She opened the door halfway. The landlord stood beneath the corridor light, holding a printed notice. "Madam Bisi, I told you. 14 days is now 13. I am looking for another place. Look fast. Coca people have paid deposit for the whole building. They have not completed legal transfer," the landlord frowned. "Please do not bring trouble here. You people think because you watch one lawyer on television, you know property law. I have collected my money. Did you give all tenants proper notice? You are asking too many questions for somebody owing 2 months. I owe 6 weeks. Debt does not become perfume because you change the measurement." He pushed the notice towards her. Bisi took it. At the bottom, beneath the typed signature, was the logo of Coca Urban Holdings, a gold key inside a green circle. Her fingers went cold. The landlord looked past her into the room. "Ah, you should thank them. They said they may give relocation support to cooperative tenants." "May?" "That is what they said. Did they put it in writing?" The landlord shifted his weight. "Madam, do not start." "I am not starting. I am reading." He walked away, muttering. Bisi shut the door. For 20 years, she had survived by changing roads whenever the past entered one. New market, new room, new surname, new explanation. Now the past had found her stall, her landlord, and the man she had once dragged from a burning building. There was nowhere left to move without carrying it with her. Across Lagos, in a quiet office, on the 7th floor of an Ikoyi building, Tola Williams stared at a message from Seyi. "Find everything on Bisi George, later Bisi Balogun. Meridian Cooperative. Fire of June 17, 2006. Check legal aid archives, tenancy records, marriage registry, and market permits." Quietly. Tola read it twice. She had worked with Seyi for 11 years. He was careful with verbs. He did not write "find everything" unless he believed the thing had been hidden. She called him. He answered on the 2nd ring from a charging kiosk in Ketu. "Sir, where are you?" "That is not the first question. It is when your driver has called me 4 times because you vanished without your security detail." "I did not vanish. You left the car to walk through a market alone. Your wallet is missing. Your phone was dead. That is vanishing with extra steps." Seyi looked towards the road where Bisi had disappeared. "I found her." Silence. Tola Ao's tone changed. "The woman from the fire?" "Yes, are you certain?" "She had the token. A token is not identity. She has the scar. A scar is not identity." She answered to Bisi George. "That is closer. Still not enough." Say closed his eyes. "Tola, a memory can open an investigation, sir. It cannot close a case." He leaned against the kiosk wall. That was why he trusted her. "Verify it." "I will. And pull the Coca redevelopment file." There was another pause. "The Victoria Island launch?" "Yes. Our firm is certifying compliance for the lending syndicate." "I know. You think Meridian is connected to the current land acquisition?" "I think Bisi is being displaced by the same family that erased her 20 years ago." Tola did not reply immediately. When she spoke, her voice was low. "Then we must move carefully. If you approach her with money before we know the facts, they will say you bought her testimony." Seyi watched a Danfo splash water over 3 pedestrians. "I already approached her with an empty stomach." "What?" "She fed me." Tola exhaled slowly. Of course she did. The next morning, Bisi arrived at the market before sunrise. The road smelled of wet dust, diesel, and yesterday, aloes pepper. She set a borrowed table beneath the tarpaulin. The rice seller refused fresh credit until she paid 3,000 naira from the old balance. Bisi handed over almost everything she had. By 8:03, she had cooked a smaller pot than usual. By 8:41, two officials arrived and told her the borrowed table also had to go. By 9:10, a black SUV stopped beside the gutter. Koka stepped out. He wore a charcoal suit, a white shirt, and a wine-red tie too perfect for the muddy street. A silver watch flashed at his wrist. Behind him came 4 private security men and 1 man carrying a camera. Looked at Bisi Balogun's stall as if something unpleasant had entered his mouth. "Who is in charge here?" Bisi wiped her hands. "Of my pot? I am. I mean this row of structures. The landlord is not here. I am not asking for the landlord." Pointed at the buildings. "All occupants must vacate within 7 days. Demolition begins next week." A murmur moved through the traders. Bisi stepped forward. "The notice we received says 14 days. That notice has been superseded." "By what order?" Glanced at her wrapper, then at the pot. "Madam, this is a development project worth more money than your whole market will see in 10 lifetimes. Do not stand in front of progress because you have learnt 2 legal words. Show us the new notice." He nodded to one security man, who handed her a paper. Bisi did not take it immediately. "Read it aloud," said. "Since you have appointed yourself village lawyer." She took the paper. The top carried a red stamp. The body claimed the land belonged to a company called Coca Meridian Renewal Limited. It ordered immediate possession within 7 days. Bisi scanned the bottom. No court case number, no lawyer Balogun's enrollment details, no named signatory. The address listed for service was a post office box. She raised the paper. "This document does not state the court that issued it." Laughed. "Listen to her. Somebody who sells rice beside drainage is now auditing legal documents." The cameraman laughed too. Bisi continued. "There is no suit number, no judge, no registry stamp. The company name is also different from the one on yesterday Balogun's notice." Balogun's smile disappeared. "Give me that paper." Bisi folded it once and slid it into her apron. "It was served on me. I will keep my copy." One security man reached towards her. Bisi lifted her phone and pressed record. "Touch me while the camera is on." The man stopped. Came closer. He was tall enough to look down at her without effort. His perfume carried across the wet road. "You poor people are becoming too comfortable with phones. You record everything except your own failure." Bisi held his gaze. "A record does not fear expensive perfume, sir." A few traders covered their mouths to hide smiles. Heard them. His jaw tightened. "You will leave this place. Whether you carry your pot with dignity or security, carries it like refuse is your choice." He turned away. Before entering the SUV, he looked back at Bisi. For 1 second, he studied her face. Not recognition, not yet, but something close. The SUV drove off. Bisi lowered the phone. Her hand was shaking. Not from fear of from the word Meridian printed inside the new company name. 20 years earlier, that word had been painted in blue letters across a warehouse wall. By noon, Tola had confirmed the first link. Bisi George married a transport mechanic named Balogun in 2008. He died 6 years later after a brief illness. She kept his surname. Her mother Balogun's surname remained George. Her market permit listed Bisi Balogun. An old legal aid index listed Bisi M. George. Same date of birth. Same scar noted in an interview record. Same woman. Tola also found something else. The 2006 police file contained no charge sheet, no conviction, no recovery of stolen money. Only a statement saying Bisi had access to the canteen safe and was believed to have fled. But Bisi had not fled. A release form showed she was discharged from custody at 6:42 p.m. on June 21, 4 days after the fire. Someone had changed the story after the fact. Tola printed the documents and placed them in a grey folder. Then she opened the archived Meridian payroll ledger. The figure Ronka reported missing was 4,730,000 naira. The transfer occurred at 7:16 p.m. on the night of the fire, 43 minutes before the emergency services received the first call. The destination account belonged to a supplier called Green Anchor Services. Its registered director in 2006 was Ronka Koka. Tola stared at the screen. Then she reached for her phone. At the market, Bisi was serving 2 drivers when Sei returned. This time, he came with cash, a fully charged phone, and no pretense that the day before had been ordinary. He stood at the edge of the tarpaulin until she noticed him. Bisi did not smile. "You found your wallet?" "No." "Your people found you?" "Yes." "Good." She turned to the pot. Sei placed 10,000 naira on the table. Bisi looked at it. "For yesterday Alo's meal," he said. "The meal was 1,500. Then keep the balance." She pushed the note back. "I sell food. I do not sell gratitude." Sei took the money. "Fine, 1 plate today. There is no fish. I will manage. You people with English. Everything is. I will manage, Alo, until the pepper touches your tongue. Try me." She served him rice and beans. He paid exact money. For several minutes he ate in silence while Bisi attended to customers. When the last driver left, Sei placed his spoon down. "I was the auditor in the warehouse," he said. Bisi kept wiping the table. "I know. I woke up in hospital 2 days later." She wiped the same spot again. "They told me you stole payroll money and disappeared. Did you believe them?" "No." "But you continued your life." The cloth stopped. Sei did not defend himself. "I searched. For how long? On and off for years. Then continuously after old court records were digitized." Bisi gave a dry laugh. "On and off. I deserve that." "You deserve the truth." "I did not disappear. I was arrested. I was questioned for 3 days. They released me without charge, but somebody had already told the newspapers that I ran away with money. I know now." Now, the word was small. It cut deeply. Sei looked down at the empty plate. "I thought if I found you, I could compensate you." Bisi leaned both palms on the table. "Compensate me for what?" "For my mother dying while people called her the mother of a thief. For employers looking at my scar and asking whether police burnt me. For changing houses each time somebody recognized my face. Tell me the price, Mr. Adiemi, since you people like figures." Sei raised his eyes. "I do not know the price." "Good. But I know the first thing is to clear your name." "My name has been clear. It was people, Alo's mouths, that were dirty." He let the words settle. "I found the transfer." Bisi went still. "What transfer?" "The missing payroll money. It did not enter your account. It entered a company linked to Ronke Koka." For one moment the market noise faded. Bisi Alo's face lost color. Then anger arrived. Slowly, like heat beneath a covered pot. "You are sure? My lawyer is verifying the bank archive. We will not move on memory alone. Why are you telling me before you finish?" "Because Koka Urban Holdings is trying to remove you from your home." Bisi glanced towards the row of buildings. Sei continued. "My firm advises one of the banks financing their new project. If the old fraud connects to the current land title, the project has a serious compliance problem." Bisi studied him. "So you did not come back because of the food?" "No, good." He looked surprised. Bisi folded her arms. "I do not want my life to become one of those foolish stories where a poor woman gives somebody rice and wakes up rich. Because heaven used a billionaire as delivery man. If you were already looking for me, say it clearly. I was already looking for you. And if I had refused you food, I would still have owed you the truth." Bisi nodded once. That answer mattered. Not enough to build trust, enough to keep the conversation alive. Sayalo's phone rang. Tola, he answered immediately. Her voice came through sharp and controlled. Sir, the missing payroll money was never withdrawn by Bisi. It entered a company controlled by the Coca family 43 minutes before the fire. Sei turned slightly away, but Bisi could still hear. What about the shares? He asked. Tola was quiet for half a second. That is worse. Her family did not lose the shares. Someone simply removed their name. Bisi gripped the edge of the table. The wood creaked beneath her fingers. For 20 years, people had told her there was nothing left to prove. Now, a voice on a phone had opened the grave. Bisi did not speak for several seconds. The market moved around her. A woman argued over the price of tomatoes. A bus conductor slapped the side of a danfo. Somewhere behind the stalls, a generator coughed and came alive. But inside Bisi, the old warehouse door opened again. She was 25. It was June 17, 2006. The Meridian Workers Aloe Transport Cooperative occupied 11 acres in Ilupeju. The place was never quiet. Mechanics hammered metal from morning till dusk. Drivers queued for duty sheets. Canteen women shouted over pots. Men who had spent half their lives on Lagos roads gathered beneath mango trees to compare traffic stories as if each one had survived a war. Bisi worked in the canteen with her mother. Her mother owned a small inherited stake in the cooperative. 2.7%. Not enough to control anything, but enough to earn a modest annual dividend and a voice at member meetings. That share came from Bisi Ilo's grandfather, one of the original mechanics who helped establish the cooperative with 36 other workers. To Bisi, the shares were old people Ilo's matter. She understood food. She understood how many cups of rice could serve 40 drivers. She understood that a hungry mechanic became careless with heavy tools. She understood that soup left uncovered near an open drain could send 10 men to hospital. Numbers in ledgers belonged to people like Ronke Coca. Ronke was 38 then. She wore fitted suits, drove a green Mercedes, and spoke to workers as if every sentence was a warning. Her father had chaired the cooperative for years. When his health failed, Ronke took control of finance. At 11:23 on the morning before the fire, Ronke entered the canteen carrying a brown envelope. Bisi, she said. Come. Bisi followed her into the small storeroom behind the kitchen. Ronke placed 3 documents on a crate. Your mother Alo's signature is needed. For what, Ma? A routine consolidation. The cooperative is restructuring old minority units. Bisi read slowly. The language was thick. Transfer. Relinquishment. Full and final consideration. At the bottom, her mother Alto's name had been typed beneath a blank signature line. How much are they paying? Bisi asked. Ronke Alo's eyes narrowed. Your mother has already agreed. She did not tell me. She is an old woman. Do not confuse her with your market suspicion. Bisi read the amount. 140,000 naira. Even then it looked wrong. The last annual dividend alone had been nearly 60,000. This is sale of the shares. Ronk clicked her tongue. See this canteen girl. Because you can read English, you think you are an accountant. I did not say I am an accountant. Then stop behaving like one. Take it home. Let your mother sign. Bisi folded the papers and placed them back in the envelope. She will need a lawyer to explain it. Ronka laughed. A lawyer? With what money? The woman who still ties the same wrapper from Christmas wants to hire a lawyer over 2.something%. Then she will not sign. The laughter disappeared. Ronki leaned closer. Be careful. Bisi. Poor people often mistake small ownership for power. It is not the same thing. Bisi picked up the envelope and held it out. My mother will still not sign. Ronk snatched it from her. That evening, Bisi told her mother everything. Her mother listened in silence. then opened a metal trunk and removed the original share certificate. The paper had yellowed at the edges. Across the front were the signatures of the founding members. "Do not let them take this," her mother said. "Why did you not tell me the shares were valuable?" "Because people behave differently when they smell what belongs to you." 2 weeks later, an external auditor arrived. Seyi Adeyemi was 32. He wore shirts that were too warm for Lagos and carried a black leather briefcase everywhere. Unlike most consultants, he ate in the workers' aloe canteen instead of sending an assistant to buy food outside. He asked strange questions. How many meal tokens were issued each day? Why had the administrative team ALO's food allowance doubled when staff numbers had fallen? Why were some drivers signing payroll twice? Why did a supplier called Green Anchor Services receive money for spare parts nobody could find? Ronke disliked him immediately. On June 17, Seyi remained in the records warehouse after closing. Bisi knew because he came to the canteen at 6:22 p.m. and asked for coffee. "We are closed," she told him. "Please, my sister. My eyes are closing, but these figures are refusing to balance. Coffee is not food." He smiled. "You sound like my doctor." Bisi gave him yam and egg instead. At 7:03, she saw Ronke Alo's green Mercedes leave through the side gate. At 7:41, the lights flickered. At 7:46, a sharp crack came from the warehouse block. Then smoke rolled through the corridor. The first alarm did not sound. The second alarm had no battery. Workers shouted. Somebody yelled that drums of cleaning solvent were stored near the electrical cabinet. Men ran with extinguishers. One extinguisher released nothing but dust. Bisi was outside when she remembered Seyi. She ran back. A mechanic grabbed her wrapper. "Where are you going?" "The auditor is inside. Fire service is coming." "He will die before traffic allows them to reach here." She covered her nose with a wet cloth and entered. The heat struck like an open hand. Shelves had collapsed across the passage. Paper floated through the smoke in black pieces. Bisi crawled beneath a desk and heard somebody coughing behind a steel cabinet. Seyi Ilo's leg was trapped. His shirt burned at the shoulder. Bisi beat the flame with her wrapper, tearing the fabric. She pulled the cabinet until her palms split. It moved only enough for Seyi to free his knee. "Stand!" she shouted. "I cannot see. Hold my waist." A section of ceiling fell behind them. Seyi stumbled. Glass cut through the sole of Bisi Alo's sandal. She kept moving. Near the door, the electrical box exploded. Fire caught Bisi Alo's left sleeve. She slapped it out with her bare hand. They reached the yard as the first fire truck entered the gate. Seyi collapsed. At the clinic, a nurse tried to stitch the cut behind his ear while he drifted in and out of consciousness. He bit his tongue once. Bisi searched her pocket and found the brass meal token she had grabbed from the canteen counter. "A17. Bite this," she told him. He obeyed. That was the last time he clearly remembered her face. The next morning, police officers arrived at Bisi Alo's home. They asked about missing payroll cash. They asked why she entered the warehouse. They asked where she hid the bag of documents a security man claimed she carried away. Bisi told them she entered to save Seyi. They laughed. One officer said, "So you became fire service and thief at the same time." They held her for 72 hours. On the second day, Ronke visited. She stood outside the barred interview room wearing a cream suit. "Sign a statement that you acted alone," she said. "I can help you. I did nothing. Then you will carry everything." Bisi looked at her through the bars. "You transferred the money." Ronke smiled. "Can a canteen girl prove it?" Bisi refused to sign. A legal aid worker eventually secured her release because no money had been found and no charge had been filed. But by then, somebody had briefed 2 local newspapers. Canteen worker vanishes after cooperative fire. Suspected payroll thief, questioned. Her photograph appeared beside both stories. She had not vanished. She had walked out through the front gate of the station with swollen feet and no transport money. But truth traveled slowly. Shame used express road. Back in Ketu, Bisi released the edge of the table. Sei watched her face. I remember the transfer papers, she said. Ronk wanted my mother Alo's shares. Do you still have the certificate? No. What happened to it? After the fire, police searched our room. Later, we found the metal trunk open. The certificate was gone. Did you report it? To whom? The same people saying I stole. Sei had no answer. Bisi looked at him. You said your firm works for the bank financing them. Yes. Then use what you know. Do not use me as a decoration for your conscience. I will not. Do not promise me a house. Do not promise me millions. Bring proof, Sei stood. I will bring proof. And Mr. Adiemi? Yes, you owe me 1 plate, not a miracle. For the first time since finding her, Sei smiled without sadness. Understood. 3 streets away, a copy of Bisi Alo's recorded confrontation with Niyi had already reached Ronke. Niyi stood in his mother, Alo's Victoria Island office, while the video played on a large screen. Bisi Alo's voice filled the room. This document does not state the court that issued it. Ro paused the video on Bisi Alo's face. She moved closer. The office was cold enough to make Niyi uncomfortable, but sweat gathered beneath his collar. Where did you get this? Ronke asked. The field team sent it. Her name? Bisi Balogun. Ronke stared at the screen. No. Niyi frowned. You know her. Ronke enlarged the image. Age had deepened by Zayal's face. Hardship had narrowed it, but the eyes were unchanged. Steady. Accusing, Ronkeal's hand tightened around the remote. What was her maiden name? I do not know. Find out. Mummy, she is just one food seller. Ronke turned so sharply that Niyi stepped back. There is no such thing as just one person when that person knows where something was buried. Niyi studied her. What happened? Nothing you need to know. You have been saying that about Meridian since I joined this company, and the company has fed you, clothed you, and paid for every foolish thing you have done. Do not develop principles at my expense. Niyi Alo's face hardened. Ronke faced the screen again. Find her debts, her permit, her landlord. Anybody she has offended. I want the market to see her as a troublemaker before she opens her mouth. And the relocation protest? Destroy it quietly. How? Ronke pressed play. Bisi Alo's voice returned. A record does not fear expensive perfume, sir. Ronke Alo's mouth tightened. Poor people survive through community. Separate her from the community. Niyi understood. By the following afternoon, rumors had begun. Bisi had collected money from a foreign organization to block the redevelopment. Bisi wanted the tenants to remain so she could control compensation. Bisi had a criminal record. Bisi once stole from her employer. Nobody knew where the stories started. That was the nature of well-funded lies. They arrived wearing many faces. A woman who had bought food from Bisi for 6 years came to the stall and placed her plate down untouched. They said you were arrested before. I was, for stealing? For an accusation. Is it true? If it was true, there would be a conviction. The woman shifted. People are saying many things. People always say many things when one person asks for one document. The woman left without eating. Bisi covered the plate. At 3:28 p.m., an official arrived and suspended her food permit, claiming the stall lacked an updated waste disposal certificate. 2 other sellers on the same row had the same expired document, but only Bisi Alo's stall was sealed. The officer tied yellow tape across her table. This is selective enforcement, Bisi said. Go and speak English at the office. Give me the written reason. He handed her a form and walked away. Bisi read every line. Then she photographed it. People laughed behind her. One traitor said, "Madam Lawyer, will photo cook rice for you?" Bisi folded the document into her nylon notebook. No, but one day it may cook somebody aloes lies. That evening, she did not sell. She took the remaining uncooked rice home. She had 900 naira left, and 6 days before the threatened demolition. She sat on the corridor floor because the room was too hot. An older trader from the next block approached. She was the same woman who had told people, years earlier, that Bisi Alo's hands were too quick around money. They had met again in Ketu by accident, and never discussed the past. The woman Alo's face was swollen from crying. "They carried my goods," she said. Bisi looked up. "What happened?" "Coca security came after you left," they said. "My kiosk crossed the boundary. They took 23 cartons of noodles and my freezer." "Did they give inventory?" "No." "Receipt?" "No." "Did anybody record it?" The woman shook her head. Then shame entered her voice. "I know we have not been friends." Bisi stood. "Who witnessed it?" "3 people." "Call them. You will help me?" Bisi picked up her phone and notebook. "We will write every item. Brand, quantity, and estimated value. Then we will photograph the empty kiosk and the tire marks." The woman stared at her. Why? What? Why are you helping me after the things I said about you?" Bisi locked her door. "Because injustice does not become correct, simply because it has finally entered your own house." They spent the next hour documenting the loss. Bisi made the witnesses record short statements in their own words. She sent the photographs to a legal aid contact, whose number Seyi had provided through Tola. She insisted the woman list the freezer serial number from an old purchase receipt. "Do not write. Many noodles," Alo Bisi said. "Write 23 cartons. Do not write." They took everything. Write each thing they took. When powerful people meet vague words, they pretend nothing happened. The woman wiped her face. "I called you a thief. I remember. I am sorry." Bisi closed the notebook. Sorry is a door. What you do after opening it is the road. The next morning, Tola arrived at Bisi Alo's room, carrying 2 grey folders and wearing a plum-colored suit. She did not come with cameras. She did not bring gifts. She introduced herself and asked permission before entering. Bisi noticed that. Inside, Tola placed the folders on the floor between them. "We have enough to begin a formal challenge," she said. "Not enough to promise the outcome. Good. I do not trust lawyers who promise before reading." Tolo's mouth curved slightly. "Neither do I." She opened the first folder. "This is the bank transfer. The funds left Meridian at 7:16 p.m. on the night of the fire. The account belonged to Green Anchor Services. Roncalo's company." "Yes." "We have the corporate registration." Bisi touched the copy but did not lift it. "What about my signature?" "We found a photocopy of the cash acknowledgement they used against you. We need a handwriting examiner." "My signature was on canteen supply forms. They could copy it." "That is our working theory. We will not state it as fact until an examiner confirms." Tola opened the second folder. "This is the shareholder register, filed with a magistrate during an unrelated dispute in 2005. Your mother Alo's name appears here." Bisi leaned forward. There it was. Her mother Alo's name. 2.7%. Bisi traced the letters with one finger. Her mother had died believing powerful people had swallowed the last proof. They said. "The register burnt," Bisi whispered. "The warehouse copy may have burnt. This certified copy did not." Bisi closed her eyes. A tear escaped. She wiped it quickly. Tola did not offer comfort too soon. She waited. "What does this mean?" Bisi asked. "It means the family Alo's stake existed. It does not yet prove it was never legally transferred. We need subsequent registers, board minutes, and payment records. And if they forged everything, Then we prove the pattern. Bisi looked at her. You speak as if truth is a building. In cases like this, it is. One block is not enough. Outside, footsteps stopped near the window. A shadow moved. Bisi rose and pulled the curtain aside. Nobody was there. But beneath the window lay a printed leaflet. Her photograph appeared at the top. Beware of fraudulent tenant agitators. The text accused her of collecting illegal donations and hiding a criminal past. Tola picked it up by the edge. Do not tear it. I know. We will preserve it. Bisi laughed without humor. 20 years ago, I used to tear every newspaper carrying my face. I thought destroying the paper could destroy the shame. What changed? I learned that the things you hate most are sometimes the things you need to keep. Tola placed the leaflet inside a clear sleeve. That afternoon, Sei attended a compliance meeting at Coca Urban Holdings. Ronke sat at the head of a glass table. Nii sat 3 chairs away, tapping one finger against his tablet. On the wall behind them, an architectural rendering showed silver towers rising where Bisi Balogun Street currently stood. The presentation was titled, Feeding Lagos with Dignity. Ronke spoke for 20 minutes about inclusive development. She praised the company, Balogun's food relief program. She displayed photographs of women receiving rice beneath banners carrying her face. She described the Ketu relocation as voluntary and fully compensated. Sei waited until she finished. How many tenants have signed relocation agreements? He asked. Ronke smiled. Nearly all. Number? Her smile held. 87%. Number. Nii opened a file. 76 households. How many verified occupants? 112. So 67.8%, not 87. Nii stopped tapping. Ronke folded her hands. We are still updating field data. Then your presentation is inaccurate. It is provisional. The slide does not say provisional. Ronke leaned back. Mr. Adeyemi, hope no problem. You are squeezing your face over ordinary percentages. The bank is not financing ordinary percentages. Sei turned to the next document. Your relocation notice cites a company that is not listed as title holder. Explain. Nii looked at his mother. Ronke answered smoothly, a special purpose vehicle. Documentation is being aligned. Before demolition. No demolition has begun. Sei placed photographs of the seized stalls on the table. What do you call this? Site clearing. One trader lost 23 cartons of noodles and a freezer without inventory. Ronke Balogun's eyes sharpened. You have been speaking to troublemakers. I have been reading evidence. Nii leaned forward. Sir, with respect, some of these people deliberately obstruct projects because they want higher settlement. One woman in particular has a history. Which woman? Bisi Balogun. Sei met his eyes. What history? A theft case from her former workplace. Was she convicted? Nii hesitated. Ronke stepped in. Her reputation was well known. Reputation is not a legal finding. Ronke smiled again, but the warmth had gone. Why is our independent advisor personally interested in a roadside cook? The room became still. Sei closed the file. Because your company used unverified allegations about her in material connected to a financed project. That is not what I asked. It is the answer relevant to this meeting. Ronke held his gaze. 2 people who had carried the same secret for 20 years now sat across one table. One had searched for the truth. The other had built towers on top of it. Sei stood. Until the relocation data, title chain, and grievance process are independently reviewed, my firm cannot recommend final compliance clearance. Nii Balogun's chair moved back. You cannot delay a multi-billion naira project because one food seller is making noise. Sei looked at him. If one person can expose a weakness in your process, the weakness was already there. He walked out. Ronke waited until the door closed. Then she turned to Niyi. Invite Bisi to the launch. Niyi blinked. What? The bank wants tenant representation. Give them representation. You want her inside the civic center? I want her where I can see her. Ronke rose and faced the rendering on the wall. We will make her part of the charity program. We will show everyone that she is greedy, unstable, and unfit to speak for anybody. And if she talks about Meridian? Ronke Alo's reflection looked back at her from the glass. Then we will remind the room who she was before she had the chance to tell them who we are. The invitation arrived the following morning, in a white envelope carried by a motorcycle dispatch rider. Bisi opened it outside her sealed stall. Coca Foundation cordially invites Miss Bisi Balogun to represent local food vendors at the Feeding Lagos with Dignity Civic launch. A transport allowance of 25,000 naira was listed beneath the schedule. Bisi read it twice. Then she laughed. The older trader beside her asked, "What is funny?" "People who seized my table now want me to sit at their table. Will you go?" Bisi folded the card. "I will ask what they want me to say." The answer came through a program officer who called at 10:36 a.m. "Madam Bisi, you will speak for 3 minutes about how Coca Foundation has supported market women. They have not supported me. You can speak generally. I do not lie generally or specifically." The woman on the phone went quiet. Bisi continued. "I can speak about food safety, respectful distribution, and relocation rights. That may be too technical for the audience. Then find another poor person to decorate your stage. Please do not misunderstand. We want your authentic voice. My authentic voice has conditions." "What conditions?" "No filming people receiving food without consent. No distributing damaged rice. And I must be allowed to say that eviction notices should carry proper legal details." The program officer promised to call back. 20 minutes later, she did. "Your conditions have been accepted." Bisi did not believe her. Still, she agreed. When Sei heard, he called Bisi. "Do not go alone. I have been alone in worse places. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. They are trying to control the narrative. I know. Then why go? Because silence has been controlling the narrative for 20 years. Sei paced his office. "Tola will attend. She can attend as herself. Not as my keeper." "Fine. And you?" "I am on the Bankalo's guest list." Bisi paused. "Do not rescue me before I need rescue. I understand." "No, you do not." Men with power like to enter at the last minute and behave as if the woman who survived until then was waiting for them. Sei stopped pacing. "What do you want me to do? Bring evidence. Let me keep my voice." He sat down. Agreed. The event was 4 days away. During 4 days, pressure tightened around Bisi. Her permit appeal disappeared from the municipal office. The landlord cut electricity to her room for 13 hours and claimed there was a fault, though every other room had light. An anonymous caller warned her that old accusations could become new charges. Someone poured dirty water over the borrowed table at night. Each act was small enough to deny. Together, they formed a hand around her throat. Bisi documented everything. Date, time, witness, photograph. Tola arranged for scanned copies to be stored in 3 separate locations. She also found the 2006 fire report in a state archive. The conclusion had been buried in an appendix. The initial fire began inside an overloaded electrical distribution cabinet. The canteen was not the point of origin. No evidence supported deliberate ignition. Ronk had known the wiring was dangerous. 2 maintenance requests carried her initials and the word defer. The second request was dated 11 days before the fire. Tola placed it before Sei. "This does not prove she wanted the fire," she said. "I know. It proves she knew the danger and postponed repair. To avoid inspection, Possibly. We need to connect the reason. Sei looked at the maintenance memo. For years, he had imagined someone setting a match to the warehouse. The truth was less theatrical and more ugly. A powerful woman had not needed to light the fire. She had only needed to decide that safety cost too much and discovery cost more. Neglect had done the rest. Tola opened another file. We also have a microfilm copy of the 2005 shareholder register. Bisi Balogun's mother is listed. In the 2007 register, the name is gone. Transfer document? None filed. Payment? None traceable. Board approval? Minutes for that quarter are missing. Sei leaned back. And the George shares? Absorbed into Coca Holdings through a general consolidation entry, without individual consent. That is what the records suggest. Suggest is not enough. Tola nodded. We found a retired court archive clerk who remembers receiving a certified register during a 2005 transport levy dispute. The copy survived because it was attached to the court file. We also found the legal aid intake sheet from Bisi Balogun's detention. What does it say? That she reported being pressured to sign a statement she could not fully read because 3 pages were covered while she signed the last page. Sei Balogun's jaw tightened. Ronki visited her in custody. Bisi says so. No visitor log survives. Then we keep it as testimony, not corroborated fact. Tola closed the file. You are learning. I hired you to make sure I do. At the market, Bisi faced another problem. A truck delivered 160 bags of rice for the Coca Foundation event. The program officer asked 6 local cooks to inspect the food and prepare sample meals for the launch. Bisi opened the first bag. A sour smell rose immediately. She pressed her fingers into the grains. Some were clumped. A pale green patch marked the inner lining. This rice is damp, she said. The warehouse supervisor shrugged. It is only the outer layer. Bisi opened a second bag. Same smell. A third. Worse. One cook whispered, "Let us wash it well. They are paying us." Bisi looked at her. "Would you feed it to your husband?" The woman did not answer. The supervisor frowned. "Madame Bisi, do not create problem. The bags were donated. Donation does not remove mold. It is for less privileged people." Bisi turned slowly. The warehouse went quiet. "What does poverty have to do with the stomach?" she asked. "Do poor people have different liver? Different kidneys?" The supervisor shifted. "We will cook it with enough pepper. Pepper is not medicine." "Madam signed the inspection sheet." Bisi read the sheet. It stated that all food was fit for human consumption. She placed the pen down. "No," the supervisor Balogun's voice hardened. "You were invited here as a beneficiary representative, not a government inspector. I was invited because I cook food. I know the smell of grain that should not enter a pot. Do you want these people to go hungry because you are forming standards?" Bisi raised one molded handful. "Respect is not giving poor people what you are afraid to eat in your own house." One of the other cooks lowered her eyes. The supervisor reached for the sheet. Bisi lifted her phone. "I'm recording the batch numbers." His face changed. "You cannot record inside a private warehouse. Then give me a written instruction to stop." He said nothing. Within an hour, Tola had the photographs. Within 3 hours, the lending bank Balogun's social compliance unit requested laboratory testing. By evening, the event organizers removed 47 bags from distribution. Ronke was furious. She stood in her dressing room at the Civic Center while an assistant fastened the back of her ruby-red gown. 47 bags. She said. "Do you know what replacement will cost?" Nii sat on a velvet chair, scrolling through messages. "Less than a scandal if people get sick." Ronk turned. "You are beginning to sound like Sei. I am sounding like somebody who does not want diarrhea on live television." "Watch your mouth." Nii locked his phone. The food seller has evidence. The bank is already asking questions. Maybe we should settle her quietly. Ronke walked closer. With what? Money. She refused 10 times what her mother Alo's shares were supposedly worth in 2006. You offered her money? Ronke Alo's eyes narrowed. That is not your concern. It becomes my concern when an old problem threatens my project. Your project? Nii stood. I have spent 3 years on this development. And I spent 30 years building the company that allows you to call anything yours. His phone vibrated. A message appeared from an intermediary handling planning approvals. Bring balance in cash to launch. 3. 2 meters, no transfer. Nii turned the screen down. Ronke noticed. What is that? Nothing. Do not lie to me badly. It is being handled. Then handle it away from my event. He insists on delivery tomorrow. Ronke stared at him. You brought cash into this? You told me to secure final clearance. I told you to secure it, not behave like an amateur. I am cleaning the mess your old paperwork created. The room froze. Ronke Alo's assistant lowered her hands from the gown and stepped away. Ronke Alo's face became expressionless. Leave us, she said. The assistant left. Ronke moved close enough for Nii to smell her perfume. Never use the word old paperwork with me again. What did you do at Meridian? I protected this family. From what? From being swallowed by people who contributed nothing and demanded ownership. Workers founded the cooperative. Workers drove buses. My father created value. So you took their shares. Ronke slapped him. The sound was sharp. Nii Alo's head turned. For a second, neither moved. Then Ronke pointed at the door. Deliver your money. Keep it off camera. And do not ask me questions you are not strong enough to survive. Nii left with one hand against his cheek. That night, he placed 3.2 million naira inside a large cream envelope and sealed it. He planned to pass it to the intermediary through the rear service corridor during the launch. He did not know the envelope would become the weapon his mother used against Bisi. The morning of the event arrived bright and dry. Bisi woke at 5:11. She ironed her turquoise blouse using a charcoal iron because electricity had gone again. She wrapped a coral orange fabric around her waist and tied a cream scarf over her hair. The colors were stronger than what she usually wore, but the clothes were not new. She had saved them for special church services. On the mattress lay the transport allowance envelope. 25,000 naira. She had signed for it the previous day. Bisi counted it, wrote the amount in her notebook, and placed the money inside a separate purse. No cash would enter her bag without a record. She packed one stainless steel food flask containing jollof rice and fish, not for herself alone. She had promised to bring a sample of the safer replacement rice for the organizer's Alo tasting table. Before leaving, she lifted the framed photograph of her mother. I am going to the house built with your name missing, she whispered. I will not whisper inside it. At 8:46, she arrived at Coker Civic Center in Victoria Island. The building rose behind a line of palm trees, white stone and mirrored glass. Valets opened car doors. Women in silk stepped onto the carpet without looking down. Men wearing watches, worth more than Bisi Alo's entire street, greeted one another with both hands and soft laughter. Bisi approached the registration desk. The young attendant looked at her clothes, then at the flask. Deliveries are at the back. I am a guest speaker. The attendant blinked. Name? Bisi Balogun. She checked the tablet. The name was there. Her smile became professional. Welcome, Ma. Bisi noticed how quickly a screen had given her the respect her face could not. A badge was printed. Local food Venenda representative. No mention of tenant rights. No mention of speaker. Bisi pinned it to her blouse. Inside, Giant banners showed Ronke smiling beside women holding bags of rice. Beneath the slogan, "Feeding Lagos with Dignity," camera crews prepared for the live stream. Bisi watched one volunteer arrange beneficiaries in a line according to clothing. "Put the most needy-looking people in front," the volunteer said. Bisi walked over. "What does needy-looking mean?" The volunteer turned. "Excuse me? You said they should arrange them by how needy they look. It is for the photograph. Did they agree to be photographed? They are receiving free food." "That was not my question." The volunteer squeezed her face. "Madam, please do not disrupt the program." Bisi pointed at the women. "Ask them. Some people do not want their hunger on the internet forever." A program officer hurried over. "Madam Bisi, we have handled consent. Show me the form." "We do not need to show you internal documents." "Then do not use me to praise dignity." Tola appeared beside them. She wore the plum suit Bisi recognized and carried a navy folder. "Is there a problem?" she asked. The program officer straightened. "No problem, Ma. Good. Then consent forms should be easy to produce." The officer walked away to find them. Bisi looked at Tola. "I said you should not come as my keeper. I came as the Bankalaw's legal observer." "Convenient. Very." Tola glanced at the badge. "They removed your speaking slot." Bisi followed her gaze. "What?" Tola opened the program booklet. Bisi Allo's name did not appear. Ronke Allo's address had expanded from 12 minutes to 27. Nii would present the relocation plan. A celebrity host would interview selected market women. Bisi closed the booklet. "They invited my face, not my voice. That appears to be the plan." Bisi looked towards the stage. "Then they invited the wrong face." At 10:14, Sei entered through the main doors. He wore a bright cobalt suit over a white shirt. The room noticed him immediately. Bank directors approached. Cameras turned. Ronke crossed the hall with both hands extended. "Mr. Adeyemi," she said warmly, "I am pleased you came. I said I would. I hope today will reassure you. Coca Urban Holdings believes in transparency. Transparency is easiest before documents are requested." Her smile held. "You always bring audit language to celebration. Celebration financed by a bank remains subject to audit language." Ronke glanced across the room and saw Bisi standing beside Tola. For 1 second, the charity smile vanished. Then it returned. "Your guest has arrived," she said. "She is your invited representative." "Of course." Ronke touched Sei Allo's arm lightly. "I hope personal history is not clouding professional judgment." Sei looked at her hand until she removed it. "I hope professional misconduct is not hiding behind personal charity." Ronke Allo's eyes cooled. Before she could answer, photographers called her towards the stage. At the rear service entrance, Nii arrived carrying the sealed cream envelope inside a document case. He sent a message to the intermediary. "Rear corridor." 11:40, the reply came, delayed. "Leave package inside linen carton near kitchen. Collector will take it." Nii cursed under his breath. He entered the catering area. Staff moved trays in every direction. A stack of sealed cartons stood beside a door, marked linen and napkins. He checked the corridor. No camera visible. He opened one carton, slid the envelope beneath folded tablecloths, and closed it. A catering assistant called his name from the main hall. Nii left. What he did not see was the small ceiling camera covering the service door. What he also did not know was that the camera belonged to the independent event production company, not Coca-Cola's internal security system. At 11:51, a staff member moved the linen carton into the tasting area. At 11:56, Bisi opened it while searching for napkins. Her fingers touched the envelope. It was thick, sealed. No name. She looked around. A volunteer hurried past. "Please, who is managing lost property?" Bisi asked. Ask registration. At registration, the attendant told her to take it to security. At security, one guard said the supervisor was inside the main hall. Bisi did not open the envelope. She held it where cameras could see and asked a second guard to witness that she had found it inside a carton. The guard waved her away. Madam, I am busy. Please state your name so I can record who I told. He became irritated. Do not record me. Bisi placed the envelope inside the outer pocket of her food carrier bag. I am taking it to the registration manager. A man across the corridor watched her. He immediately called Niyi. Niyi answered inside the hall. What? The woman from Ketu found the package. Niyilo's blood went cold. I do not know. Stop her. Niyi turned towards the rear doors. Ronki intercepted him. Where are you going? The envelope. Bisi found it. For 1 second, Ronka stared. Then, calculation replaced alarm. Where is it now? In her bag. Did anybody see you place it? No. You are sure? I checked. Ronka looked towards Bisi, who had just entered the main hall, carrying the food flask and bag. A new possibility opened before her. 20 years earlier, money had vanished, and Bisi had been blamed. Now money had appeared in Bisi Balogun's bag. History was offering Ronke the same weapon twice. She took Niyi Balogun's phone. Call internal security. Tell them a cash package is missing. Mummy, she found it. There may be cameras. Then we move before the footage moves. This is madness. No. This is survival. Ronke sent a message to the technical director. Disable rear corridor feed. Preserve no local copy. Then she handed Niyi Balogun's phone back. If she reaches registration, we lose control. Stop her in the hall. Niyi looked at his mother. He saw no panic now, only certainty. The same certainty that must have existed in 2006 when she told police a canteen worker had stolen payroll money. What exactly did you do to her? He asked. Ronka stepped closer. What I am about to do again. Bisi reached the center aisle, just as the master of ceremonies announced Ronka Balogun's keynote address. The lights dimmed. Guests turned towards the stage. Bisi saw the registration manager near the front and began walking towards her. 2 security men blocked the aisle. Madam, come with us. Why? We need to search your bag. On what basis? A cash envelope is missing. Bisi Balogun's hand tightened around the strap. I found an envelope. I reported it to 3 people. Open your bag. Call the police and record the search. One guard reached for the bag. Bisi stepped back. The food flask struck her leg. People began to notice. Ronk paused on the stage. Then she descended the steps slowly, still holding the microphone. What is happening? She asked, though she already knew. The guard spoke loudly. Ma, the missing envelope is in this woman Balogun's bag. A murmur spread through the hall. Bisi looked at Ronki. I found it in the linen carton. I was bringing it to registration. Ronki stopped 3 feet away. Her ruby-red gown caught the stage light. Open the bag. Not without an independent witness. Ronka turned towards the audience with a pained expression. This is exactly the kind of situation our charity tries to prevent. We give access. We give food. We give transport money. And some people still choose dishonesty. Bisi Balogun's heart began to pound. She knew the performance. She had seen its older version behind police bars. Do not do this again, Bisi said. Ronke Balogun's eyes flashed. Again? You know what I mean. Ronke lifted the microphone. Search her. The guards grabbed Bisi Balogun's arms. Her food flask fell. Steel struck marble. The lid opened. Jollof rice scattered beneath Ronke Balogun's heels. Hold her hands! Ronka shouted. This roadside food seller entered my charity event to steal. Poor people are becoming too bold. Hundreds of guests lifted their phones. Cameras flashed. Bisi Balogun's breathing shook, but she refused to bow. I found that envelope inside a food carton, Ma. I was trying to return it. A guard pulled the envelope from the bag and handed it to Ronke. She tore it open before the crowd. Bundles of cash appeared. 3.2 million naira. The room erupted. Ronke raised the money above her head, then kneel. Confess before everybody, and perhaps I will ask the police to pity you. Bisi looked at the rice, crushed under expensive shoes. The same meal she had cooked from the replacement batch she had forced them to provide safely. The same kind of meal she had given a stranger 5 days earlier. Now, kindness, caution, and evidence seemed to have led her back to the same accusation. For one terrible second, 20 years collapsed into the hall. Police room, newspaper ink. Her mother Alo's silence, employers turning her away. Bisi Alo's knees weakened. Ronke saw it and smiled. "Go down," she whispered. "Know your level." One guard pushed Bisi Alo's shoulder. Her knee bent. Then a chair moved in the front row. A man in a bright cobalt suit rose. "Release her." His voice stopped the room cold. Security men turned towards Sei. Neither released Bisi. Ronke faced him with the microphone still in her hand. "Mr. Fadeyemi, please sit down. This is an internal security matter." Sei stepped into the aisle. "No. It is now a compliance matter, a criminal evidence matter, and a public defamation matter. Release her." One guard loosened his grip. Ronke Alo's voice sharpened. "I did not give that instruction." Sei looked at the guards. "My firm is the independent compliance advisor for the bank financing this project. Every person in this hall has just recorded a woman being restrained without police presence, while an unverified accusation was announced publicly. Decide whether you want your own faces attached to the next report." The second guard let go immediately. Bisi straightened. Her left wrist carried red marks where fingers had pressed. She did not rub them. She bent down and lifted the stainless steel flask from the floor. Rice clung to the side. Ronke laughed into the microphone. "So this is what we have come to. A respected advisor threatening security because he has developed sympathy for a food seller." Sei continued walking until he stood beside Bisi. Not sympathy. What then? History. The hall quietened. Ronke Alo's hand moved slightly. Seishi reached inside his jacket and removed a clear evidence sleeve. Inside it lay a brass meal token, A17. Bisi stared. It was not the one on her key ring. The edges were darker. One side carried a shallow dent where teeth had pressed into metal. Sei held it beneath the stage light. On June 17, 2006, I was trapped inside the records warehouse of Meridian Workers ILO Transport Cooperative in Ilupeju. The electrical cabinet had exploded. Shelving blocked the exit. I had burns on my shoulder, glass behind my ear, and smoke in my lungs. Nobody moved. This woman entered that building when others were running out. She pulled a steel cabinet away from my leg. Her own sleeve caught fire. She dragged me into the yard, paid for transport to the clinic, and stayed until medical staff took over. Sei raised the token. She put this between my teeth while a nurse stitched my wound. A camera zoomed in. The mark A17 filled the large screen behind the stage. Bisi Alo's lips parted. "You kept it," she whispered. Sei looked at her. "For 20 years. Ronke recovered first." "A touching story," she said. "It has nothing to do with money found in her bag today." "You are correct," Tola said. She walked from the side of the hall, carrying the navy folder. Ronke Alo's face hardened. Tola stopped near the production control desk. "A past act of courage does not prove innocence in a present allegation. That is why we checked the evidence." Ronke lifted her chin. "What evidence?" "The footage from the rear service corridor." The technical director stood suddenly. "There is no footage." The camera feed failed. Tola turned towards him. The internal feed was disabled at 12:02 p.m. Your production contractor maintained an independent backup under the bank Alo's event integrity requirement. The backup did not fail. A low sound moved through the guests. Ronka looked at Niyi. He had gone pale. Tola nodded to the production company Alo's operator. The large screen changed. A timestamp appeared. 11:38:14. The video showed Niyi entering the service corridor with a document case. He opened the linen carton. He checked both directions. Then he placed the cream envelope beneath folded tablecloths. The image froze. The room exploded with whispers. Ronka turned on him. Niyi. He stared at the screen. Tola raised one hand. The footage continues. At 11:56, Bisi entered the frame. She searched the carton, found the envelope and examined the outside without opening it. She approached one volunteer. The camera had no clear audio, but the body language was obvious. She carried the envelope towards registration, then towards security. At 11:59, she showed it to a guard. He waved her away. She placed it in the outer pocket of her bag and pointed towards the front desk. The footage ended. Tola faced the audience. Bisi Balogun reported the item to 3 separate people before she was stopped. She did not open it. She did not conceal it. She carried it in an external pocket while seeking an authorized recipient. Ronka held up the microphone. Then my son is the one with questions to answer. That does not involve me. Tola did not blink. The next record does. The screen displayed a message log. Disable rear corridor feed. Preserve no local copy. The sender was Ronka Alo's registered event contact number. Time: 12:02 p.m. 3 minutes after Bisi first reported the envelope. Silence entered the room. It was not ordinary quiet. It was the kind of silence that made every breath feel like evidence. Ronke looked towards the technical director. You exposed private communications? The technical director preserved the instruction after learning that the independent feed remained available, Tola said. He provided it voluntarily after being advised not to destroy records relevant to an allegation. Ronka Alo's voice rose. I was protecting guest privacy. You ordered only the camera covering the corridor, where the envelope had been placed to be disabled. You cannot prove why. No, Tola said. The message proves the act. The surrounding evidence will help investigators determine motive. Sei looked at Ronke. You tried to erase the footage before publicly accusing Bisi. Ronke Alo's mouth tightened. I was told cash was missing, I responded. By making her kneel? She has a history of theft. Bisi stepped forward. The words reached her before fear could stop them. Say it clearly, Ma. Do not hide behind history. Tell them what you told police in 2006. Ronka turned towards her. You took payroll money. No, you were the last canteen worker near the warehouse. I entered the warehouse to save him. Bisi pointed at Sei. You knew that. You carried documents away. I carried a human being. Ronke laughed, but the sound cracked. Who will believe a kitchen worker after 20 years? Sei answered. Documents do not care where she worked. Tola opened the Navy folder. On the screen appeared a bank transfer record. Meridian reported 4,730,000 naira missing on June 17, 2006, she said. The allegation circulated publicly against Bisi George, now Bisi Balogun. No charge was filed, no funds were recovered from her, no conviction exists. The transfer line enlarged at 7:16 p.m., 43 minutes before the emergency call reporting the fire. The same amount left Meridian Alo's payroll account. It entered Green Anchor Services. A company registration document appeared beside it. Green Anchor Services was controlled by Ronke Koka. All eyes turned. Ronke Alo's face remained rigid. That company supplied vehicle parts. Tola lifted another paper, Meridian Aloe's inventory review found no corresponding delivery. The invoices list brake assemblies for bus models the cooperative did not own. Niyi lowered his head. Ronki gripped the microphone with both hands. Old accounting discrepancies do not make Bisi innocent today. The footage makes her innocent today, Seiji said. The records challenge the lie used against her then. Ronki looked at the guests, searching for a friendly face. No one stepped forward. People who had laughed when Bisi Aloe's rice fell now avoided her eyes. Tola continued. The fire report concluded that the point of origin was an overloaded electrical distribution cabinet, not the canteen, not deliberate ignition. 2 maintenance requests warned of overheating. Both were deferred under the finance director, Aloe's authority. The word defer appeared on the screen beside Ronke Aloe's initials. Bisi felt the scar on her arm sting. For 20 years, some people had said she set the fire to hide theft. Now the room saw what she had always known. The fire began where neglected wires had been left to burn. Ronka stepped backwards. The building was old. Maintenance was Management Aloe's responsibility. You were the finance director, Tola said. I did not start any fire. No one here has said you did. The report shows that you were warned about a dangerous condition and postponed repair. Investigators will examine why. That answer was more powerful than shouting. It did not turn suspicion into fact. It left Ronka nowhere to hide behind exaggeration. Tola changed the screen again. A shareholder register from 2005 appeared. Names, percentages, signatures. Bisi Aloe's mother Aloe's name was highlighted. Meridian Aloe's certified shareholder register filed during a 2005 court dispute lists Bisi Aloe's mother as owner of a 2.7% founding stake. In the 2007 register, the name disappears. We found no filed transfer, no traceable payment, and no individual consent authorizing removal. Another document appeared. The removed shares had been absorbed under a consolidation entry into Coca Holdings. Ronke Aloe's voice became thin. That was a lawful restructuring approved by members. Then the approval records should exist, Tola said. Produce them. The minutes were lost in the fire. The court copy predates the fire. The banking records survived. The consolidation schedule survived. Only the individual consents are missing. Ronka looked towards Sei. You came here to destroy me. Sei Ala's face did not change. I came here to certify whether your company could be trusted with public-facing finance. And you used a personal debt to prejudice the process. That is why Tola led the evidence review. That is why independent records were preserved. That is why the bank received copies before this event began. The last sentence traveled through the hall. Before this event began. Ronka could not call the presentation an ambush invented on stage. The records had already moved beyond her reach. Sei faced the bank representatives. A's of 12:41 p.m. Today, Adeyemi Risk and Governance withdraws its recommendation for final compliance clearance on the Coca Meridian Renewal Project. A director in the front row stood. The lending syndicate acknowledges the notice, he said. Pending independent review, no further disbursement will be authorized. A gasp spread across the room. Nii Aloe's head snapped up. The project depended on the next release of funds. Contractors were waiting. Land payments were outstanding. Without the bank, the silver towers on the banners were only expensive drawings. Ronk Aloe's composure finally broke. You cannot freeze a multi-billion naira development in a charity hall. The hall is irrelevant, Sei said. The evidence is not. She turned on Bisi. This is what you wanted. You want hundreds of people to lose jobs because you could not accept your level. Bisi looked at the rice on the floor. Then she looked around the hall. No, Ma. I wanted you to stop building profit with other people Alo's names missing. Ronke pointed at her. You think this man will make you rich? You think one plate of rice bought you a place among these people? Bisi Alo's face became calm. I fed him before I knew his surname. That is the part you will never understand. Seyi lowered his eyes for a moment. Bisi continued. And no, I did not come here to collect charity. My mother Alo's shares are not charity. My name is not charity. The homes of those tenants are not charity. They are rights. The guests were no longer filming Ronke alone. They were filming Bisi. But this time, she controlled her own voice. Nii moved towards the side exit. Two men in plain clothes stepped into his path. They did not touch him. One displayed identification and spoke quietly. Tola had notified the appropriate authorities before the presentation, asking them to preserve financial evidence if the current cash package proved connected to improper payments. Nii stopped. Ronke saw them. Nii, she said. He turned. Her eyes ordered him to remain silent. Then she changed strategy. My son acted without my knowledge, she announced. He placed that cash in the carton. He must explain himself. Nii stared at her. The accusation landed slowly. Mummy, you handled operational approvals. You told me to secure clearance. I never authorized cash. You knew. Ronke lifted her chin. Do not drag your mother into your recklessness. Something in Nilo's face closed. For years, he had accepted the comforts of silence. He had spent money without asking where it began. He had repeated his mother Alo's language about obstructive tenants and ungrateful workers. He had signed orders he did not read because success protected him from curiosity. Now the protection had moved away. Ronke was offering him to the fire, just as she had offered Bisi. Nii reached inside his jacket. The men near the exit tensed. He removed his phone and placed it on Tola Alo's open folder. The passcode is 4709, he said. Ronke Alo's face changed. Nii, do not be stupid. He looked at her. The phone contains the intermediary Alo's messages. It contains demolition instructions. It contains payments. It also contains your order to circulate Bisi Alo's old accusation among the traders. Ronke stepped towards him. You ungrateful fool. You were ready to send me to prison alone. You committed the present offense. And you taught me the method. The hall held its breath. Nii turned to Tola. There is an email folder called Meridian Background. My mother sent me scanned documents after Seyi began asking questions. She told me to destroy the folder after reading. Ronke lunged for the phone. A security man moved between them. This time, the guard did not obey her. Her ruby-red heels slid on one grain of rice. She caught the edge of a chair, but her legs folded beneath her. Ronke Koka went down in front of the same crowd, where she had ordered Bisi to kneel. Phones lifted higher. Somebody laughed. Another person began to clap. The sound spread. Bisi raised one hand. Stop. The clapping died unevenly. She walked towards Ronke. The woman looked up from the floor. Her breathing was fast. For the first time, no assistant rushed to arrange her dress. No director extended a hand. No guest pretended not to see. Bisi stood over her. Ronkelo's eyes held fear, hatred, and disbelief. Go on, she whispered. Enjoy it. Bisi bent slightly. Stand up, Ma. Ronke stared. I know what public humiliation can do to a human being, Bisi said. I will not become you simply because I finally have witnesses. The words entered every phone recording in the hall. Bisi extended her hand. Ronke looked at it as though it were more painful than a slap. She refused. Nii stepped forward and helped his mother stand. She pushed him away. The men in plain clothes asked Ronke and Nii to remain available for formal interviews. They informed them that devices and selected records would be preserved under lawful process. There were no handcuffs, No dramatic dragging across the carpet. The law did not need theater to become serious. Ronka looked at Sei. You think this ends with your speech? No, he said. It begins with records. She turned to Bisi. I will fight you. Bisi lifted the dented food flask. You have been fighting me for 20 years. The difference is that today, I am no longer fighting your story with my mouth alone. Ronke walked from the hall between lawyers and investigators. Nii followed separately. The charity banners remained behind them. Feeding Lagos with dignity. Bisi looked up at the words. Then at the rice on the floor, a member of staff approached with a mop. Leave it, Bisi said. The staff member paused. Bisi faced the guests. You all watched food fall and a woman lose her name in the same minute. Many of you lifted phones before anybody asked for evidence. Several people lowered their devices. Do not lower them now, she continued. Record this part too. The phones rose again. Poverty is not proof of dishonesty. Expensive clothes are not proof of character. And charity without respect is only another way powerful people advertise themselves. Her voice shook once. She steadied it. The rice on this floor was prepared from bags we inspected, because 47 donated bags were damp and unsafe. Some people wanted us to cook them because the recipients were poor. Remember that. Human dignity is not only about money. It is about refusing to feed another person what you will not feed yourself. It is about asking permission before filming hunger. It is about reading the paper before surrendering your home. The hall remained silent. Bisi looked at Sei. And it is about knowing that gratitude does not erase delay. Mr. Adeyemi found me, but he cannot return my mother. He cannot return 20 years. What he can do is help the truth, enter places my voice was locked out of. Sei nodded. No smile, no attempt to share the moment. Bisi faced the guests again. I will not accept a donation in exchange for silence. I will accept restitution where it is legally due. I will accept a public correction. I will accept a proper process for every family pushed out of their home. And I will accept no photograph that turns us into background for somebody else. Aliso's goodness. This time the first applause came slowly. Not from excitement, from recognition. Then it grew. Bisi did not raise her hands. She did not cry for the cameras. She bent down, collected the lid of her food flask, and walked away from the spilled rice. Outside the hall, Sei caught up with her near the glass doors. Bisi. She stopped. I am sorry, he said. For what part? For not finding you sooner. For imagining that finding you would make me the good man in this story. Bisi looked through the glass at Lagos traffic moving beyond the palm trees. You were 32 when the fire happened. Yes. You had no family? My father was alive then. My mother too. You had work? Yes. You had people who believed you? Yes. Bisi turned to him. I had none of those things after the accusation. That is the difference between your 20 years and mine. Sei accepted it. I know. No, you are beginning to know. He nodded. Tola joined them. The bank has issued a formal suspension notice, she said. We also received confirmation that the title review and the old Meridian share records will be referred for independent investigation. Bisi tightened her grip on the flask. What about the tenants? Any demolition during the review would create additional legal exposure. We are filing for an interim order today. Today? Today. Bisi looked at the clock above the lobby desk. 1:27 p.m. 20 years of shame had not ended at 1:27 p.m., but for the first time it had met a record stronger than rumor. That was enough for one afternoon. The consequences did not arrive in one convoy. They came as letters, meetings, court filings, frozen accounts. Questions that powerful people could no longer answer with a smile. 3 days after the Civic Center event, The court granted an interim order restraining demolition on the K2 property until the title and relocation process could be reviewed. The order did not declare the tenants permanent owners. It did something more immediate. It gave them time. Time to read. Time to organize. Time to challenge figures that had been pushed beneath their doors as if a red stamp could replace consent. Bisi returned to the row of buildings carrying certified copies of the order in a transparent folder. The same landlord who had warned her not to bring trouble now stood in the corridor, rubbing both palms together. "Madam Bisi, I knew you were fighting for all of us." She looked at him. "No, you did not." He cleared his throat. "People can misunderstand under pressure. Then understand this clearly. The order delays demolition. It does not cancel rent. It does not give anybody permission to damage property. And it does not mean compensation has been approved." The tenants gathered around. Bisi held the order where everyone could see. "Take photographs. Read every page. Do not depend on what I say because you like me today. Tomorrow, if you stop liking me, the document must still speak." A man asked, "Should we sign the new relocation form?" "Not until it states the amount, date, alternative location, and what happens if the project is delayed. Ask for your own copy before signing. Blank spaces are not decoration. Cross them out." Another tenant raised her hand. "They said legal advice is only for people who can pay." Tola, standing at the back, answered, "There are legal aid organizations and community clinics. No honest lawyer should tell you that a forged court number becomes real because you are poor." The tenants laughed softly. For the first time, the corridor felt less like a place waiting to be erased. It felt like a room where people had begun to count themselves. Bisi Balogun's food permit was restored on the 5th day. The municipal office called the earlier suspension an administrative error. Bisi requested the explanation in writing. The officer on the phone sighed. "Madam, we have restored it. What else do you want?" The written reason. "Why?" "So the same error will not wake up next month wearing another shirt." The letter arrived 2 days later. She filed it inside her nylon notebook. Coca Urban Holdings entered a crisis that no press statement could clean. The board suspended Ronke as chairperson pending investigation. The lending syndicate froze the next disbursement. An external forensic team reviewed contracts, land acquisitions, and the old Meridian consolidation records. Ronke released a statement claiming she had been targeted by disgruntled beneficiaries and a conflicted consultant. The statement lasted 6 hours online. Then the production company released the full unedited corridor footage to investigators, and 3 newspapers published side-by-side images of Bisi trying to report the envelope, while Ronke Balogun's message ordered the feed disabled. The statement disappeared. A second statement replaced it. This one expressed regret for procedural misunderstandings. Bisi rejected the language. "A misunderstanding is when 2 people arrive at different bus stops," she told Tola. "Holding somebody and calling her a thief before evidence is not misunderstanding," Tola agreed. The legal team demanded a specific correction. 6 weeks later, Coca Urban Holdings published it. The company acknowledged that Bisi Balogun had not stolen the cash found at the Civic Center. It stated that she had made repeated efforts to return it. It also confirmed that no criminal conviction existed against her in relation to the 2006 Meridian incident. Bisi read the correction 3 times. It was printed on the business page. The original accusation had once appeared with her photograph near the front of a local paper. The correction was smaller. Truth often paid more for less space. She cut it out anyway. Then she placed it beside the old article she had kept despite hating it. One showed the lie. One showed the beginning of repair. Neither could return her mother. The investigation into Meridian took longer. The handwriting examiner concluded that the signature on the alleged payroll acknowledgement was not naturally written by Bisi. It had been assembled from known samples and reproduced through a tracing process, common in document fraud at the time. Bank records confirmed that Green Anchor Services received the missing payroll funds and moved most of the money into 3 connected accounts within 2 business days. The shareholder review found 12 founding families whose names had vanished during the same consolidation period. Bisi Balogun's family was not the only one. That discovery changed the shape of the case. It was no longer a story about one poor woman recovering a forgotten share. It became a collective claim involving the estates and descendants of workers whose ownership had been treated as loose change. Sei insisted on that distinction whenever journalists tried to center him. "I am a witness and advisor," he said. "The owners are the people whose records were altered." Some reporters still called him the billionaire who found the woman who saved him. Bisi disliked the phrase. "They make it sound as if I was hiding behind a tree for 20 years, she complained one afternoon. Sei sat beside her temporary stall, eating rice from an enamel plate. "They need a headline. Then they should headline the stolen shares. Shares do not photograph as well as a billionaire." Bisi clicked her tongue. "You see why rich people begin to think every story is about them," Sei laughed. She pointed her spoon at him. "I am serious. So am I." Their relationship grew through disagreement. Sei wanted speed. Bisi wanted process people could understand. He wanted to fund a new food center immediately. She refused. "You cannot use your money to stand where restitution should stand," she told him. "I am not replacing restitution. You are impatient. People need support now. Then support the legal clinic, pay for auditors, help us design records. Do not put your name on a building and call the wound healed." Sei leaned back in the plastic chair. "You always speak to me as if I am one stubborn driver refusing change. Are you not refusing?" He considered it. "I am. Then pay your fare and shift." He shifted the chair. Bisi smiled. Niyi Alo's fall was quieter than his mother Alo's. He lost his position as chief operating officer. His passport was temporarily held under the conditions of the ongoing inquiry. The improper cash package became part of a separate investigation into planning approvals. His cooperation mattered, but it did not erase his conduct. He had authorized the seizure of stalls. He had circulated defamatory material. He had allowed security teams to treat tenants as obstacles rather than people. Under a negotiated compliance order connected to the corporate review, he was barred from managing any community relocation fund for a defined period. He surrendered bonuses linked to the K2 project and contributed to restitution for documented property losses. He visited the market once without cameras. The traders gathered around him with hard faces. The older woman whose freezer had been taken stood in front. "Where is my freezer?" she asked. Niyi looked at Bisi. Bisi folded her arms. "She did not ask me." The freezer had been damaged after seizure. Niyi arranged payment based on the purchase record and current replacement cost. He also signed an inventory acknowledgement for the 23 cartons of noodles. When he finished, he approached Bisi. "I am sorry," he said. She studied him. "For what?" He looked down the row of stalls. "For thinking development meant the people already here had to disappear. That is one thing. For using your old accusation, that is another. For putting fear into notices and calling it process." Bisi nodded. "Better. Do you forgive me?" She looked at the signed reimbursement papers in the trader Halo's hand. "Forgiveness is not a certificate I issue. because you completed one payment. Niyihalo's face tightened, but he did not argue. Bisi continued. Keep repairing what you damaged. Let time answer your question. He left without shaking her hand. That was honest. Ronke did not come to the market. Her lawyers fought every allegation. She denied ordering false records in 2006. She claimed the consolidation had been approved collectively, and that missing documents were the result of the fire, not fraud. But the evidence continued to narrow the space around her. Former staff provided statements. An archived insurance file contained copies of invoices that did not match delivered goods. The legal aid intake sheet supported Bisi Balogun's account of pressure during detention. The current camera deletion order showed a method of concealment that investigators considered alongside the older records. Months later, formal proceedings began. The story did not end with Ronke losing every naira or sleeping on the street. Real accountability was slower and more exact than that. She lost control of the company. She lost access to certain assets under review. She lost the unquestioned respect that had protected her words for decades. Most importantly, the people she had described as too poor to understand ownership now sat across from forensic accountants with certified registers in their hands. 6 months after the Civic Center event, an interim restitution arrangement released the first portion of funds owed to verified Meridian stakeholders. Final valuation remained under review because the assets had changed in value over 20 years. Bisi received enough to leave her one-room apartment, clear her legitimate debts, and secure a long lease on a modest ground-floor property near the market. She did not buy a mansion. She did not arrive in a convoy. She did not throw money into the air while neighbors danced. She hired a quantity surveyor. She paid a lawyer to review the lease. She asked Tola to check the governance structure twice. Then she opened A17 community table. The sign outside was simple: no photograph of Bisi, no photograph of Seyi, no donor Alo's face smiling above a bowl of food. Inside stood 12 tables, a clean kitchen, a dry storage room, and a small office with a scanner. The walls were painted warm cream. The shelves carried labeled containers with dates written clearly. A board displayed the daily meal cost. Those who could pay full price did. Those who could pay part paid part. Those who could pay nothing received a meal without being required to perform gratitude. No camera entered the dining area without permission. The office offered 3 practical services. Traders could scan receipts and store copies. Tenants could photograph notices and receive help identifying missing legal details. Food vendors attended short sessions on safe storage, clean water, stock rotation, and the danger of serving damaged donated goods. Bisi insisted that every lesson be practical. No long grammar. She said. Show the person where to write the date. Show her how to count stock. Show him how to keep 1 copy away from the shop in case of fire. Seyi Balogun's firm provided 3 years of independent audits without charge. Offered to pay the full operating budget. Bisi refused. The center must not die if you wake up one morning and decide to become foolish. Seyi put one hand on his chest. Especially you. Wealth can make foolishness look like vision. They agreed on a mixed structure. Part of the operating income came from regular meal sales. Part came from a transparent community fund. Professional services were donated under written terms. Monthly accounts were displayed on the notice board. Every naira had a line. Every donor received a receipt. Nobody received the right to control the dignity of the people eating there. On opening day, journalists asked Bisi to recreate the moment she fed Seyi his last meal. She refused. Hunger is not theater, she said. He was unwell. I fed him. Finish. One reporter asked whether she regretted giving away her food. Bisi looked across the room at Sei. No, but not because he later helped me. I would regret becoming the kind of person who sees a shaking hand and first asks for proof of wealth. Sei lowered his face. The answer stripped the money from the memory. It returned the meal to what it had been. Food. One rainy evening, 8 months after they met again, the last customers had left A17 community table. Staff wiped the tables while Bisi checked the storage sheet. A delivery rider stepped inside. His clothes were soaked. He held a helmet beneath one arm and squeezed his face as if preparing for embarrassment. "Madam," he said, "how much is the cheapest food? Rice and beans is 1,500. He checked his pocket. "I have 500. My delivery app blocked my account. I will come back tomorrow and balance it." A new staff member glanced towards the door. "We are already closed," she said. The rider nodded quickly. "No problem. I am managing." He turned to leave. Bisi closed the stockbook. "Come back." The man stopped. She served rice and beans, added one piece of fish, and placed the plate on a table. The rider stared at it. "Madam, I said 500. Sit. I do not want trouble. At this table, we solve hunger before we discuss shame." He sat. Sei stood in a cream shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He had come straight from work and was waiting for Bisi to finish the monthly account review. For a second, the scene looked like the rainy afternoon beneath the blue tarpaulin. But it was not the same. The room was dry. The food was safely stored. The worker had wages and a written contract. The accounts were open. And the person receiving help did not have to become anyone Aloe's advertisement. On the wall behind him were the words Bisi had chosen for the center. "Dignity is not a reward for good behavior. Belongs to every human being." Sei read them again. "You know," he said softly, "people will still say one meal changed your life." Bisi sat at the table opposite the rider and opened her notebook. "One meal did not change my life. What did? Evidence, persistence. People finally doing the work they should have done 20 years earlier." Semi smiled. "And the meal?" Bisi looked at the rider eating with both shoulders finally relaxed. "The meal reminded us what the work was for." That was the truth that stayed after the headline became old. Bisi did not win because kindness magically purchased wealth. She won because kindness survived inside her without replacing judgment, courage, or evidence. Sei did not become a hero merely because he searched. He became useful when he stopped making his guilt the center and placed his access behind the truth. Even Nii Aloe's late cooperation did not erase the harm he caused. Repair required more than one dramatic confession. What remained most powerful was Bisi Aloe's refusal to repeat Ronke Aloe's cruelty when the crowd finally changed sides. 20 years of public shame had not taught her to enjoy another person, Aloe's humiliation. She understood what many powerful people never learn. Justice should restore what cruelty destroyed. It should recover names, rights, records, and choices. It should not simply create a new victim for the audience to mock. A meal may feed someone for one evening. A document may protect a family for years, but dignity changes the way a person carries himself long after both are gone. So before judging the clothes, work, accent, or hunger of the person standing before us, we should remember that every human being is carrying a history we cannot see. And sometimes, the person the world dismisses as ordinary is the only one in the room who still remembers how a human being should be treated.